Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talk Advocacy to Me, brought to you by Captivate Collective. Usually we have a host here, Liz Richardson. She's on vacation. So if you're watching, Liz, hello. I'm at the wheel today, so let's see what happens. But I am here with the lovely, wonderful, and talented Jessica Mitchell. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you.
Jess and I actually go way back. We used to work together at Smart, and we worked on advocacy together at Smart. I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, Jess?
Yeah, something like that. It was a while.
It was a while ago. It was a good time. Smart was a super fun place for us to both work and kind of hone our practice around customer advocacy. More recently, Jess is working at Clio as a customer marketing manager. And in a recent conversation with Jess, she told us some very interesting things about what she's doing with referrals. And of course, that piqued our interest over here at Captivate, because who doesn't love a good referral? It is the best way to draw a direct line from advocacy to actual revenue. But the thing about referrals that struck me is that the conversation around referrals has kind of dropped off in recent years. Back like 10 years ago, if a new client would come in for a scaled advocacy type of program, they'd be looking for referrals. That would be their number one line item on why they purchased the software and what they're looking to do with customer advocacy. But over the last kind of 10 years, that's tapered down a little bit as we got more into the discover, nurture, mobilize. Don't just go for the jugular and go for the referrals. And in this conversation, that gets us to the question around best practices with referrals. And in this Talk Advocacy to Me with Jess, she's going to talk to us about why she was like, best practices? What best practices? I'm doing great over here with referrals, and I'm not doing any of that discover, nurture, mobilize thing. I'm going for referrals with my very specific audience, and it's working. So, Jess, tell us a little bit about Clio. Tell us a little bit about your audience, and then let's get straight to it, because I know that our listeners out there, if they can learn something from you today about what you're doing with referrals, that's going to be good news and time well spent. So, tell us a little bit about Clio. Tell us a bit about your audience to cue us up for moving into this conversation about referrals best practices and why we should just throw them out the window.
Yeah, so Clio is a legal practice management software company. We're global, but based out of Canada. Our main audience is lawyers and legal professionals, and they use Clio to run their practices. I joined Clio about 2 years ago with a ton of advocacy experience. I've been in advocacy for over 10 years at 3 companies. 4, including Clio. And I came in and realized that we weren't using the traditional Discover, the D&M model. And I kind of leaned in and was like, okay, wait a second, this program is performing so well. Do I necessarily need to do that? And so we kind of threw that out the window and went with more of we looked at strategy first, and the results were really outstanding. So it was like, okay, well, best practices are great, but results are even better. And so that's why we went with that.
Yeah, I think that that's a very succinct way of putting it, is that we have best practices in customer advocacy for all aspects of most aspects of the practice, and we do tend to stick to them. But there are cases where the best practices just aren't the best. So for you, this kind of interesting nuance of having this legal audience, that definitely caught my attention in our earlier conversations, because I wouldn't have thought of the legal audience as really being willing to kind of lay down their connections to a software company in a referral program. Can you tell us a little bit more about your audience, Jess? Kind of like, where do they sit in the legal spectrum? How many customers do you have available to you for your referral activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So our customers are lawyers, anywhere from small firms to larger firms. We see the sweet spot with referrals or smaller firms, all kinds of different practices, and areas of focus. I think that part of the reason why there's a bit of a sweet spot is lawyers talk to one another,
Hmm.
and they love to share their best practices and what works and what doesn't. And often, the software they're using comes up. And then there's something in it for both the customer and the prospect when they refer a peer to Clio.
Mhm.
We have a pretty solid reward. It ranges anywhere from 250 to 500, depending on the campaign and time of year and all that kind of stuff. And we change
Mhm.
it for best practices type stuff. And then on the other side, their peer gets 10% off their subscription. So it's win-win.
And it's very tactical, and it sounds very clear what you have to offer, what's in it for them, what's in it for the person they're referring, and obviously what's in it for you. Before we get into your strategy, like the real nuts and bolts of how you did this, which I know the listeners want to hear, whether your audience is comprised of legal professionals or not, there's going to be some nuggets here. So let's start with a review of the common perceptions and best practices of B2B referrals. How have we kind of been told and taught that we should be going after referrals in customer advocacy, Jess?
Well, I think it's all based on that discover, nurture, mobilize, or balancing asks, educational stuff, and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And referral is that ask, and it's a heavy ask. So I think that's something that we don't always balance, and it works for us, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're not balancing like asks with gives, but I guess in a way there is something in it for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way I see it in terms of referrals. And referrals are a huge ask because somebody is putting their reputation on the line when they give
It's kind
a
of the
name to us.
biggest, like referrals and references and reviews. That's really when you're attaching your reputation to the reputation of the brand that you're advocating for. For clarity's sake, Jess, are you running like a whole kind of full scope advocacy program, or is this a referral only program?
We are running a full advocacy program. We partner with our customers on case studies and testimonials. We encourage them to write reviews. We just launched a reference program and we do have referrals. We also have a community, so we do all kinds of stuff with our customers. And we always have an advocacy booth at our flagship user conference, ClioCon.
Okay, so is your referral program folded into that advocacy program, or does it serve a different audience?
It's on a piece on its own. It targets the same folks, though.
Okay, all right, great. So talk to me a bit about what was it that made you move down this path towards referral only and saying, I don't need to do all of this nurturing over here. I can just go straight in for referrals. What made you get to that place?
I think I jumped in and I saw the results and I was like, huh, this is really interesting. Let's go with it and
Mm,
just, see what happens. And I did my first big campaign where we increased our referral gift card from 150 to 250 and the results were outstanding. And I was like, huh, this is interesting. So like I just kind of leaned into that and kept with it.
hmm
If it's not broken, why fix it?
Are you able to share some of those results with us?
I don't have the results from that specific campaign, but from 2022 to 2023, we saw a 233% year over year growth in terms of leads and an 83% growth in new customers and 92% growth in new MRR. And then in 2024, we've seen quite a bit of growth to 31% in leads, 35% in new customer acquisition, and 50 in MRR. So,
And these numbers are just related to the referral program. This isn't just
correct,
across
yes,
Clio. Okay,
just the
so
referral program.
I'm just going to recap those numbers because I mean, they're beyond outstanding. They're numbers that you don't typically hear. So 233% year over year growth in leads, 83% growth in new customers, and 92% growth in new MRR from your referral play.
Yeah, from 2022 to 2023.
Okay. Um, okay. And in 2023, uh, You saw a lot of growth in 2023, and you believe that was the result of having a solid strategy. And you know, us here at Captivate, we are, strategy before software. You should have a strategy. You should have some kind of a roadmap guiding what it is that you're doing with customer advocacy. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Talk to us about your strategy. You came in, you saw this program, you thought, I'm going to give this a try. You saw some results, and then did you take a step back and say, okay, I'm going to actually put a solid strategy in place to try to accelerate and grow?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a campaign-based strategy, so we run various referral campaigns throughout the year. Our flagship ones are Valentine's, which performs outstanding. We saw a huge growth this year, Christmas and summer. So
Yeah.
we run those three campaigns, and then we have a huge tactical plan that I put together every year in terms of like for each quarter, sorry, in terms of each tactic that's going out the door when, and we do a lot with internal enablement, with CS support, and especially sales. So that's huge as well.
Okay. You've told us a bit about the tactical pieces of your strategy. You went from a $150 gift card to a $250 gift card. I'm so blown away, and I'm just like, I'm almost perplexed. Like a Valentine's campaign for legal professionals performing well, like this just doesn't compute. I don't think I would walk in somewhere and be like, okay, you've got a legal audience. Let's try a campaign about like love. I don't know. Can you tell us a little bit more, maybe about one of the specific campaigns? When you say a campaign, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a campaign during a specific time window. It's time bound. We're currently running a spring campaign. We're about to launch that. Christmas, it ran, I want to say, for like a month and a half, and it has a specific theme and gift card amount. And then we have a bunch of different comms strategically planned to go to our customers and different channels that we're using. So for the Valentine's Day one, it's all about like the theme was sharing the love of Clio. So it's less like Valentine's Eve, but there's a bit of a spin on love.
Yeah.
And our talented creative team has just done such an awesome job with all these assets. I can't take the credit for all of this because I work with so many amazing folks at Clio that help enable me. And yeah, so for that one, this year we increased the incentive to $400, and we had a whole ton of communications going out to customers to encourage them to get involved and refer their friends.
Mm-hmm. So, a campaign for you is this is an email campaign, a series of emails going out, or is it multi-channel? Are they seeing these comms in other places?
Yeah, it's multi-channel. So it's email, we use Pendo, app login, web banners. We enable internal folks. It's really as many channels as I can use. We also have app login for Clio that
Mm-hmm.
we leverage. So it's never one channel. It's always as many channels as I can get my hands on.
And are you using any tools for that the once someone clicks through on one of these messages in whatever channel, are you using a tool to manage the referrals, or are you using like a Google form? Can you tell us a little bit about the back end of your campaign?
Yeah, so historically we weren't using a tool. We were using Marketo landing pages, but we just relaunched the program with Ambassador. And what's exciting about that is the program is now integrated into our product. So when customers log into Clio Manage, they can access the product and they can get their own unique share link, and they can share with their networks why they love Clio and get those referrals in. So that's kind of just changed in the last couple months.
Okay, super. And I believe Ambassador is going to be at our advocacy vendor speed dating event that is coming up. You can look for details on Captivate's LinkedIn page if you're interested in learning more about Ambassador or any other vendor. As with any campaign, Jess, the success of the campaign really comes back to the messaging. Can you tell us a bit about how, if you're you're not kind of really going through a nurture flow with these folks, you're not looking at a ton of data about these folks. Talk to us a bit about the message, and why do you think this campaign landed so well, or any of your campaigns have landed so well with your audience?
I think there's a couple things. We show what's in it for them. So they're getting a gift card shortly after the referral closes. And then we also use messaging that encourages them to share Clio with their friend, like about how the product will help them. So it'll help them run a more efficient practice, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's a bit of that intrinsic benefit that they're helping somebody else run a great practice. I know in the summer we leaned into, help make it so that your friend can take a break during the summer because Clio helps them efficiently manage their practice. Um, so some
This
of
is
those
super
types of things.
interesting. It's like a reverse kind of advocacy play, like be an advocate for the people in your network by referring them into Clio. Um, that's a cool angle. So you're clearly messaging the benefits for the participants, which are kind of super straightforward. This isn't complex. It doesn't. Is the program tiered, or is it just you every time you have a referral that what goes through to an accepted opportunity or closed one? Talk to us in a little more detail around the benefits and the clarity that your campaign focused on providing.
Yeah, so it's anytime like somebody refers their peer to Clio and they're not in an active evaluation and it closes within 90 days, they get a $250 gift card and the friend gets 10% off their Clio subscription. That amount does change from time to
Hmm.
time for different campaigns, and we kind of look at that strategically and play with it a bit,
Hmm.
see what results we can drive. And then the other thing we're toying with is like multi referrals. So if you refer two people, you might get an extra bonus and stuff like that. We're still nailing
Hmm.
that down, but it's something that I'm toying with in the back of my mind.
You mentioned, Jess, that the only stipulation is that the person that they're referring isn't in an active cycle with you. Um, I want to hone in on that a little bit. As someone who has provided referrals in the past, I've gotten skunked a number of times when I've taken the time to really like lay the groundwork with a peer, and then I submit that referral, and then the vendor comes back and says, "Sorry, they're already in our CRM." But like, who isn't in your CRM? So did you take the time to define what you mean by active cycle so that your advocates could kind of have a clear answer if their referral was not accepted?
Yeah, it's so if they don't, if there's an active opportunity
Mm-hmm.
that sales is working, I try as much as I possibly can to give customers the benefit of the doubt. So we
Yeah.
often have customers that come out and say, "Oh, hey, I referred somebody last November. I didn't submit it officially. Can I get the referral reward?" And if everything looks legit, I'll give them the benefit
Mm-hmm.
of the doubt because as an advocate marketer, I trust my customers and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So we do a lot of that on the back end. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Sorry, oh, I had another
go ahead.
thought. The other thing that we do is we send notifications to customers along their journey. So
Mm-hmm.
if they submit somebody, we'll let them know, hey, there's a pending referral. Thank you so much for submitting this name. And then if it's denied, we tell them why, or approved, and we'll let them know, oh, yes, your friend adopted Clio. You're going to get your gift card in this amount of time. So I think that the big thing is communicating what's
Yeah.
going
Is
on
that
and
those progress notifications, is that happening through the software through Ambassador? Okay. So
yes,
that's
it
kind
is. Yeah.
of when someone submits, then that's automated. Yeah. I think that
Yeah.
clarity is really huge so that you can see that your referral hasn't just gone into a black hole. You can see how it's moving along or not, and also gives you the opportunity to ask questions if you have them. Um, if we bring this back to best practice, what do you think are some of the best practices that you have followed or that you've established in your work with referrals at Clio? It's unusual to see a referral program or referral campaigns repeatedly deliver at this level without that kind of big motion into the referral program. So, what do you think are some best practices that our listeners could take away from you throwing the traditional best practices out the window?
I mean, I think, and I've always seen it this way with advocacy, it all starts with strategy. If you don't have a strategy and roadmap, how are you going to get those results? So that's the one thing I lead into. We communicate often and with candor with our customers. So I think it really helps to remind your customers that this program exists. This is how it can benefit them. We also target specific customers. So obviously, we're excluding those customers that are churn risks, all that kind of good stuff. We typically target net promoters or customers that are happy with us. They're more
Mm,
likely to refer. So those are a few things that we do. And I would say that like my biggest piece of advice for others is double down on that strategy. And then don't get too stuck on it. If there's something in the strategy that's not working, experiment and play with different things. That's why we played with different amounts and all that kind of good stuff,
mm-hmm,
because that just allows you to figure out what works best and hone in on stuff.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's kind of jumping in or bouncing off of that idea of what works best. Certainly, you must have had challenges along the way. If you're diving in here, you've seen great results. What challenges did you encounter along the way, Jess? How did you work around them or pivot your strategy, your approach based on those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a few things, we have to be careful about how often we're communicating with customers. Like I said, we do a lot, so sometimes we can annoy people. So we're very cautious of the messaging and making sure we keep that fresh. Um, I think that's the biggest challenge that we've had. And then prior to Ambassador, another challenge was the program was run very manually, and it was great. It was performing fantastic, but using Marketo landing pages definitely isn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes referrals went into a bit of a black hole, and that was not a great experience for our customers, which is why we've moved to Ambassador.
Okay, great. So to recap, then some of the challenges if taking this approach, be aware of kind of the communications that your customers may be receiving about the asks, referrals, maybe other asks, but also just communications on their journey as a whole. Um, Keep the process really simple. So in this case, the referrer just sends a link to the person that they're referring into the program. Make sure that you're doing something. So for you, looking for those positive NPS people, do something to narrow that funnel a little bit to increase your chances of success. At Clio, you realized, I mean, with this kind of volume of referrals, I know we're not going to share specific numbers about how many referrals you did drive, but it's a huge number that became unwieldy with more manual techniques. So bringing in a platform was the right move for you. But depending on your scope of referral program, a really good referral program or a good referral campaign can just be run with your marketing automation and a good Google form. But that the manual steps that come off of that are often overlooked, but very important. Part of that, doing the updates with the people who are referring in. Highly manual work, but really impactful for the people referring. And last here, a challenge. I don't know if you touched on this one, Jess, and that's about getting people on board and being able to pitch the benefit of referrals or a referral program back into the business. I would think that's kind of in the world of customer advocacy. That would be one of the easier conversations to have. Was that a challenge for you at Clio?
No, I'm really lucky to work with so many amazing folks at Clio, and our sales organization really gets it and understands. Same with customer success. So that has not been a challenge, but I think with anything advocacy wise, your internal colleagues are like, they can really help you be successful. So I would lean into that. And I would also say that, like, if you're thinking of starting a program and you don't have tech, I think that there's a way to be scrappy and figure out if you can prove some results.
Yeah.
before you introduce technology. And I think regardless of what tool you're using, strategy is so important. I've run many advocacy programs with tools and without tools. And if you don't have a strategy, it doesn't matter how good of a tool you have. It's going to flop, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Strategy before software, every single time. All right, Jess. So back to our spicy question here for this episode of Talk Advocacy to Me. If you could sum it up in terms of your key takeaways, when should we throw referral best practices out of the window? What would your just key takeaways be for the folks who are listening? When is it a good idea to say, well, I could do this a different way?
I mean, I think that if your audience is receptive to doing things differently, if your business is receptive to that, to trying things out, and I think anything advocacy related, like we're always experimenting and playing, which is something I love about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's aptitude to experiment and see what works and what doesn't, if you're getting results, the best practices don't matter. Or just start something. You never know what you're gonna get. So that's the other thing is I came in and there was an established program and it was doing great. So it was like, okay, well, I don't know if I should be starting from scratch here. So that was the other reason I threw those out the window.
I love that. I love the idea of experimentation in customer advocacy, especially if you can like cherry pick a smaller segment of your audience, go out and talk to your audience. If you're thinking of spinning up a referrals only play, or if you haven't added standalone referrals campaigns to your advocacy mix, try it. Narrow that funnel a little bit, try to get the people that you stand the most chance of success with, talk to your customers to understand what would need to be in it for them to want to play ball in a referral program. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to Jess on LinkedIn, reach out to Jessica Mitchell, connect with her. She has done, I mean, your results are probably the best results I've ever seen with a referral program. So if that means casting best practice aside and kind of creating your own path, it worked for you. And I'm sure that you would have more to share with folks out there who may have questions around how you did this. Some of the results that you've seen and your learning. So thank you so much for sharing those challenges as well, Jess.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And yeah, if anyone
Absolutely.
ever has questions, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help and share what we've done. It's not always perfect, but it's worked for us.
Yes.
It's been a really fun journey.
It's such a fun journey. And for us, Jess, it is really fun for me to be here with you today after so many, working with you so many years ago at Smart, and still here we are in the customer advocacy space, talking best practice and talking about those best practices as well. Thank you so much for your time, for everyone who's taken the time to listen. Thank you for your time as well. And until next time, this is Talk Advocacy to Me.